So how's it going, everybody? It is a nasty, cold, rainy winter day in Middle Tennessee, and I thought it'd be a great day to kick off our Speedy's Garage series that I've been talking about doing for a while. I'm finally going to get around to it. I have tons of footage from when the shop was built, the decisions that I made along the way, some of the tools that I've chosen, and workbenches and things of that nature. Had a lot of questions about the shop through the YouTube channel, email, Facebook, and things of that nature. So I'm gonna start this series out, start taking some time to show you guys how I came to this, building this shop and the way I designed it. Asked a ton of questions to a lot of people who know a lot more than me. I'm not a contractor. I'm gonna start off with saying that. I'm not educated in contracting or building, anything like that. So this is literally just a normal guy who likes to work on cars that wanted a nice shop to spend time in. I was tired of tripping over tools in the other garage, and I would get halfway through with the project and it would get late and Mrs. Speedy would start yelling at me to come in and have dinner, and the car is still halfway torn apart, and I would worry about having to, if it couldn't move on its own power, I would have to push it in or get it off the jack stands and spend a half hour putting tires and wheels back on to push it back in the garage so I could shut the garage door. I didn't have any room to work. I felt disorganized, and honestly, it made jobs that should have been pretty simple quite a bit more complicated. I felt like I spent more time walking around looking for where I had left the wrench than I did actually working on the car. So when I started designing this shop, I wanted it to be, I had a certain idea of how I wanted it to be lighted. I wanted it to be bright. I thought about the floor and how I was going to coat the floor because I wanted it to be very easy to clean up. If I dropped a bolt or a screw or a socket, I wanted it to be easy to find under the car. I may want to wash a car in here if the weather's bad outside, if it's wintertime and I need to clean the car up. Even if I don't do a full wash, I wanted the ability to do a waterless wash, one of those types of scenarios. And so I'm going to start this series off, show you guys from start to finish how I got the shop built, the decisions that I had to make. I had to do some things with the city. There's all kinds of regulations and things of that nature, at least where I live, that are required. So I'm going to talk about some of that. So stick around, and I hope you enjoy the series. But before I get to that, I wanted to show you where I used to do all of my work in case you haven't been watching the channel for that long. So the attached garage on the house is a 3-car. It measures, and I just took a measurement with a laser measuring device. It is 33 feet 5 inches across, and it is 19 feet, let's call it 3 inches deep. So the crossways wasn't too bad. You get 3 cars in here. You can see we got a 4Runner, the Camaro, Mrs. Speedy's ride, and we still got a little bit of room. The problem is the depth. As you can see, when the 4Runner's in here, there's only probably 2 feet till you're at the wall there. You get a workbench in here like this, and you're kind of having to squeeze around the cars and whatnot. Now, 19 feet 2 inches is from that wall to the garage door. And initially I thought this bay would be a work bay. And so I could pull a car in this 3rd single car garage door bay and work on it. The same builder that built this house built my previous home, and it was a much smaller home. It was like 1,200 square feet. Really all I needed was just me and a dog. I had a 2-car garage, but it was, I don't remember the width on it. It was 2 cars, so let's say it was 28 feet maybe, something like that. But it was definitely 24 feet deep. I remember that for sure. So it was about 5 or 6 feet deeper than this garage is, because I could park the 4Runner in there and I still had another 5 or 6 feet of space, and I could walk around and get in front of the cars and everything else. So when they built this house, I signed off on the blueprints and everything else. It didn't key into my brain that 19 foot, it sounds like a lot. 19 feet sounds like a lot of space, until you start measuring a car, like the Challenger as an example. The Challenger's, I think it's 16 feet long. And so if you pull the car in and it's 16 feet long and you only have a space that's 19 feet deep, that only leaves 1.5 feet in the front and the back by the time you get the garage door closed, and you get cramped. So what I would have to do is have pretty much the tail end of the Challenger hanging out of the garage door while I worked on it to give me enough room up front. And so I had toolboxes, and I tried to kind of scatter them around in between the cars and things of that nature, and it was just a real big pain in the butt. So I took my lessons learned from this garage, and it even has a little air conditioning unit and heat unit It's kind of one of those hotel ones. It was pretty cheap to have put in when I had the house built. So I intended to do quite a bit of work out here, and it would probably be fine if you had a hobby like woodworking or models or trains or something like that. But when you start talking about cars that take up so much space, it just wasn't going to work out. And I did talk to the realtor. I had a really good realtor when we had the house built, and I asked him, you know, about extending this garage, making it, you know, the 24 or 26 feet deep like the old house. And he said, well, the challenge with that is this garage is below your bonus room. And when you extend the garage, you're extending the bonus room, which is considered living space. And he said living space, based on, you know, the area and, you know, all the real estate mumbo jumbo, they sell houses, it's usually a price per square foot is kind of how they break it down. And let's just say it ended up being, you know, I don't remember, it's been several years ago, but let's just say it was $100 a square foot as an example. If I extended the garage out 6 feet, well, that would be 6 feet times 33 feet times $100 a square foot. And so let's do some quick math, see how fast that adds up. Okay, so we said it was just 6 feet. We said it's, let's just use 33. It might have had to have been more than that because of the way the kitchen and everything is attached, but let's just use 33. That adds 198 square feet. Let's use the easy number of $100 per square foot. $19,800 just to make this garage 6 feet deeper. So as you can see, when you start talking about, you know, roughly 20 grand just to get 6 more feet on the garage, the realtor very wisely advised me to plan on putting that into a detached garage. He said, hey, just, you know, let's just do the garage like it is, keep the price of the house the same, take that money that you would have used to add 6 feet to this garage, and you still wouldn't have had enough room because you got cars in here, take that, put it towards a detached shop, and you can build just about anything you want, because a detached shop isn't considered living space, and it will be considerably less than the $100 a square foot. And like I say, don't use that $100 a square foot as gospel. I'm just using that to make the math easy. It could have been 110, 115, depends on where you live. It might be 150, I have no idea. But I'm using 100 just to make the math easy and kind of show you how it works. And while we made the decision just to leave this garage alone and just use it to park cars in and devote all of our effort and energy and financial gusto, I guess we'll call it, towards building that detached garage. Okay, so with that decided, I came up with a plan. And what I decided to do is take some graph paper and start laying out the way I wanted the shop to be designed. So there's a graph paper. I considered each square, it's 1/4 inch graph paper, so I considered each square to be 1 square foot. That would make it easy for me to lay it out and know exactly where everything was going to be. I had to make some decisions, so I had to figure out how big it could be. So I had to call the city and ask them where the setbacks were, and this has been several years ago, so I'm going to say it was 15 feet from the back property line and 15 feet from the neighbor's property line. And then they had some other regulations, and I'll get into that later. We actually had to do what they call a variance, and I had to go down to the city and basically petition to have a change made to what they consider normal architecture because of where I wanted to have the shop built. I'll tell you about that in a little bit. For right now, I'm going to show you how I came up with these plans. And this is the real important part. If you're laying out your shop, I highly recommend you take some time and don't just let the builder kind of do it for you. My builder was actually very thankful that I had plans that I wanted to use, because they knew they were building exactly what I wanted, and it took the guesswork out. You know, they're always a little bit worried that they're just gonna do what they might like or what they think might make sense, and then you're gonna be unhappy and it's gonna cause a bunch of problems and expense having to rework things. So what I came up with, and I talked to a bunch of people, I was originally gonna do a 20 by 30. And everybody I talked to said, make it as big as you can fit because you'll always want more room. And so that's what I did. We ended up being 24 by 34. And I laid it out on the squares. There's 24 squares this way and 34 squares this way. I knew I was gonna have a man door coming in. I wanted a large garage door that was insulated, so we considered doing an 18 by 10, and I measured that out, and I wanted a jack shaft opener to keep from having anything running across the top of the shop. I was gonna have a pull down ladder for the attic, and I'm gonna eventually probably put a lift in this shop, and so I wanted to have provisions for a lift. And so I had some concrete pads. We'll talk about that later, but here's where I was gonna have a tray in the ceiling, and this is where the pads would be, and this is where the 2 lift posts would go when we eventually get there. And then a restroom, and a compressor closet. Now, Mike at OST Dyno, who tuned Orange Crush, I called him up because he runs a performance shop, and I said, hey man, what are some things I need to consider? And he said, definitely put your air compressor in a compressor room and make it sound deadened. He said, your compressor will drive you nuts if you're listening to it just bang away all day. That was great advice. So glad I asked him about that. And then several people suggested I put a bathroom in. They said it's going to cost you a little bit more, but it will pay for itself almost immediately. And sure enough, it has. So I ended up having a bathroom put in this end, and I considered the air compressor closet and the bathroom both being 3x4. I knew I wanted a big double window on the end to let some light in. I didn't figure I needed any windows on the sides because I've got, or decided to put in good lighting, and I didn't want to take up any shelf space or tool space with windows, so I just did a large double window at one end. But that's kind of how I laid it out, and I drew it out on paper so that I could work with this. And once I had the base layout drawn, I then took these and Xeroxed them. Did I say Xerox? That's like an old person's term. I made copies of these, we'll just say copies. And now I could take and mark it up. I could play with it, put toolboxes different places and measure those out, and I would know exactly how much room I was going to have in the shop. And I also did a three-dimensional view. You can see that there. So I had to figure out how high the ceilings were going to be. I wanted them to be tall, but not too tall, because remember, when you start getting a great big space, that's cubic feet of air that has to be heated and cooled, and I wanted things to be as efficient as they could be. Originally, I thought I was going to do 14-foot ceilings to make room for the lift posts. The builder actually said, hey, well, you don't really need 14 foot. Let's make the ceilings 12 feet, and then we'll do the cutout section for your lift posts. We'll make those 14 feet. That way you're not having to heat that whole space. 12 feet will be plenty tall for your ceilings. So that's exactly what we did. And we decided to cut the bathroom and the compressor closet off at 8 feet, and that gives me storage space up top. So again, a really good drawing you want to start with. You can see there's a three-dimensional. It shows the 12-foot ceilings, and that's the base. And there is the aerial view of how we laid it all out. And here's an example of one of the drawings where I started kind of honing in on where the toolboxes would be, where the cabinets would be, and things of that nature. You can see I measured out a 72-inch by 22 by 42 toolbox down here, and that's this Harbor Freight one. So it's right where I intended it to go, right underneath the double window. With a restroom being in here, I knew I was going to need a sink. I'll show you that in a minute. And then I knew we were going to have some cabinets in different places. And so I started laying that out so I would know what the shop was going to look like and how much room I was going to have. You see here I too have the lights laid out. There's the lift posts, so I knew how much room I would have there. I haven't done the lift yet, obviously, but this is what it would look like. And honestly, when I got the shop built, I had so much space, I started wondering about the lift. I decided I would wait until I needed it before I ever installed it. But now I really like the space so much, I guess I could go in between the posts and kind of leave it there, but you kind of have to walk around the posts and everything. So I got to decide on that long term. And yes, that is a calendar of Miss Speedy. And something to be aware of, and I actually was not, and this goes to show my inexperience with building. If you're fully familiar with this stuff, more power to you, but I've got a digital measuring device here. We're gonna put it against the back wall of the shop. It shoots a laser, and it takes a measurement. Now remember, this is supposed to be 34 feet. Comes in, I don't know if you can see that, at 32 feet and about 1 inch. So 32 feet, 1 inch with an original size of 34 feet. And that's because it's the outside measurement that's 34 feet. So you lose a little bit with the brickle block on each end and the eave and that kind of stuff. So it does take a little bit away. So we're at 32 feet deep, so we lost about 2 feet. And on the width, we're at 22 feet, 11 inches. 22 feet, 11 inches. So that was supposed to be, what, 24? Is that what I said? 34 by 24? Yep, 34 by 24. So we lost about 2 feet each direction, a little bit less from side to side because you didn't have as much of an eave on the garage door. Remember that is to the garage door and then from wall to wall. So you'll lose a little bit. So account on a 2 foot reduction in your building size on your inside measurement, your internal measurement, as opposed to what you actually think you're getting. And that internal versus external measurement was something the builder and I had to be very clear on with the closets, because they always consider it an external measurement. And I said, no, I want the closet, the internal, to actually be 3x4. So the closet and the bathroom were both built with an internal measurement of 3 feet by 4 feet, and so they protrude into the shop a little bit because of the thickness of the wall and all that. So just keep that kind of stuff in mind as you're going through the process. Now I'm going to talk about the bathroom, and I know that seems like something odd to kind of go over, but honestly, this has been one of the best decisions I made. I almost didn't do it because the way the shop sits, it doesn't have a crawl space. So homes here, most of them have crawl spaces, and your water flows down and out very easily. With the shop being level, you know, water has to flow. There has to be some kind of angle to flow the water back to the city water pipes, and your wastewater gets, you know, taken on out wherever it goes. So in this situation, they had to put in what they call a grinder pump. You can kind of see it back there behind the toilet. And what that does, you hear it running there, it actually grinds and pushes the water out under pressure over to the house pipes, which then goes back out to the city water lines. So that's how that worked. That added a little bit of expense. It's not anything unusual. There's actually a neighborhood right up the street that the builder who built this shop actually constructed most of the homes in, and those houses were very high up. I'm probably going to get this wrong, but it has something to do with how the water pressure and all that works. I don't know anything about all that stuff, but he said every one of the homes over there had a grinder pump in it. So they put that in. It has worked flawlessly for several years. Every once in a while you hear it go off when you run the sink. You know, we had to have a sink out here. You know, if you're gonna have a restroom, you definitely wanna have a sink to wash your hands like I mentioned. So when you run the sink, it also goes over to that grinder pump and pushes that water out. And just like a normal bathroom, we did do a light and a fan combo up in the ceiling. You can see it there. So that's how that works. Now Mrs. Speedy likes to do her own thing. I wanted her to have a spot in the shop, so you know, she's my wife, I want her to feel left out. She does run a face and body online business where she makes eye cream and lotion and soap and all that kind of stuff. And so I wanted her to have a space out here, and it kind of worked out really, really well because we went and picked up or had shipped in this restaurant class sink. It's about 6 feet long. It has a good 18-inch deep sink, so it's very deep. So I can get parts in here if I need to, and she can do whatever she needs to do. We did this fixture. One thing to be in mind, or keep in mind rather, the fixture wasn't set up to actually fit. So restaurant sinks apparently are a little bit different in size, and so what I had to do is just use a hole saw to make that a little bit bigger to get this fixture to fit. The fixture came from like Lowe's or Home Depot or something. The ones from the restaurant supply were just restaurant supply, and they didn't really fit to what we wanted. We wanted one that had a single handle, and it had the ability to do spray or stream. So that's how we set that up. And I also wanted it to be where I could, you know, get it down in here if I had to get it on a part or something to wash it up. And we got hot and cold water, obviously. A little soap dispenser over there we hardly ever use because I like to use this, you know, orange cleaner on my hands and stuff. The rest of this stuff is Mrs. Speedy's stuff. But the sink also came with a shelf on the bottom there, as you can see, which comes in really handy. She puts all of her stuff down there. So that was one of the main fixtures of the shop. So you come out of the restroom, obviously you can wash your hands and all of that. So that had to go in, and you know, special plumbing came through the wall to get to the sink, but no big deal. Again, it does have hot and cold water. So that's the restroom. We'll talk a little bit about the compressor closet, and I'll go into more detail on some of this stuff separately, but this is just kind of an overview. So we did switches on the outside of the compressor room closet. So these control the lights in the shop. I set them up on 2 circuits. So that's the first 2, front and back. The next one is the fan for the compressor closet. We removed the gasket. This is a external house door. It's not a normal internal door, it's an external house door because it's insulated and it deadens the noise. We removed the gasket on the bottom of the door so that the fan, it's got a light fan combo just like the bathroom that's mounted in the top of that closet. It'll pull cool air in underneath the door and cool that down if I ever need to. I haven't really ever had to use it. I've run the compressor quite a bit in the summertime, and I just usually you know, crack the door to check on it, and I haven't noticed it being hot, and so I haven't ever needed it, but it's there if I do. So we can turn that off. And then it's got illuminated switches on the outside. That one is the light for the closet. That one is the switch for the compressor. So we put a 30 amp switch in here for that compressor, and I can control it, and it's illuminated, so I know if I left it on, it illuminates when it's on. I can control it from outside the compressor closet. Put the light on so you guys can see. Whoops, that's the fan. There we go. So that's what it looks like. We got the mops and stuff hanging on one side, brooms and all that on the other. There's the light fan combo that's mounted in the top. And then there's the compressor, Quincy QT-54. Been very happy with that. I'll link to the top. We actually did a separate video of the install and how we ran the line up and through the wall of the regulator. I did put a piece of wood in here to give it something to mount to be very sturdy. And you can see back there we've got our 30 amp plug for power. And I did not bolt the compressor to the floor. What I did is I went and got some rubber mat from Tractor Supply. That's where it came from. It's 3/4 inch rubber mat. I cut it to fit the closet, and then I set the air compressor on that when I installed it, and it has not moved in 2 or 3 years of use. So that's how I did it. The rubber mat cushions it. I did not bolt it to the floor. And of course, we mounted the regulator outside so I can control the air pressure from outside of the closet. So technically, I never have to open the door when I'm working. I can just flip the compressor on. If it's air down or whatever, it'll air up, and then I can control the pressure if I ever need to adjust it. I set it to 105 PSI. Most of my tools run off of 90. I set it to 105 and I really haven't messed with it. This is one of the Rapid Air 3/4 inch regulators. That's what I used for that. I did a video on the air system. I'll link to that at the top as well, because I've done some of these pieces previously. But again, illuminated switch for the compressor, regulators outside, and then we got the Rapid Air system that runs up and around the shop. Okay, and I guess the last thing I'm going to show you in this segment is going to be the garage door. This is kind of an overview of the shop now that it's finished. We'll start going into how it was built on the next one. But the garage door is at 18 by 10, as I mentioned, and we did the one with the windows in the top. As I mentioned, I didn't put any windows down the sides of the shop, and so I wanted to have some sunlight come in during the day because I wouldn't have to run the lights as much. So I did a double window in the back, you can see that there, and then just the windows in the top of the garage door there. And it does provide enough lighting that I don't have to run all the lights all the time. You saw that I put the lights on separate circuits, so I can usually either not turn them on at all if I'm working at the workbench or something, but if I'm under a car, I have found that I need light, so I'll just turn on the half in the end of the shop that I'm working on, either the front or the back. And those switches that were back there by the air compressor closet, they're actually 3 ways back to the front of the shop, which is up here. So this one, when it's off, it's illuminated, so if I come in the shop at night, I can find it. So that turns off the front half of the shop lights, and you can see there it's illuminated. So when I open the door at night and it's dark in here, I can find it, flip it back on, and this controls the back half of the shop. And that was something that was recommended to me by a friend of mine. He said, man, you're gonna walk yourself to death going back and forth. He said, I guarantee you, whatever end of the shop you're on, the lights aren't gonna be on where you are. You're gonna have to go walk back up front or whatever and turn the lights back on. So he said, put switches at each end of the shop. Lifesaver, because he was exactly right. I can't tell you how many times I've been at the front of the shop doing something and walked to the back and need light on back there, or I'm gonna start working in the back of the shop. And I can just walk right over to the compressor closet, flip the front ones off, the back ones on, or flip both sets on, or whatever I happen to need to do from each end of the shop, and save myself a whole lot of walking. And there is that LiftMaster jack shaft opener that we use for this garage door. It is an 18 by 10, as I mentioned a couple of times, so it's heavy. So I got the heavy duty one. I've been very happy with it. It just has a small remote here mounted to the wall, and then it obviously came with remotes for the cars, but we use the built-in home link, whatever they call it, and it has worked fine. But that's the jack shaft opener. And the nice thing about that is you notice there's nothing running across the ceiling. It's all self-contained. And up behind me here, you can see in the ceiling there, the cutout, that is the attic stairs. So I had to get custom attic stairs because, well, I shouldn't say custom, I had to get special attic stairs because the ceilings are 12 feet tall, and normal attic stairs I think were only 8 or 10 or something like that. So I was able to find that at a local store and had the builder just go by and pick it up, and that's what we put in. The challenge is, and I didn't think about this when we were building it, wouldn't have changed it, let me say that, but that's 12 feet off the ground, so there's a little pole you have to use with a hook on it, and there's a little eye up there on that door, and you have to kind of reach up there with that pole and hook it and pull it down and then unfold the attic stairs. So it's a little bit of a challenge, and then you have to climb up them if you're putting stuff in the attic too, and it's a small opening. So I'm gonna look long term. I don't know what I'm gonna do about that, but it's kind of hard to get the car parts up there that I want to put in storage. So I may look at doing some kind of pulley system, and there's a window in front of the shop on the very front. It was for aesthetics. I may look at doing like a little pulley system or something up there to pull big parts up and go pull them in through the window or something of that nature. If you've got a suggestion, leave me a comment below on that. But keep that in mind when you do a tall ceilings in your shop. Getting access to the attic can be a chore. And there is the cutout in the ceiling for the lift post, if I ever decide to put one in. You can see how they did it. It's just recessed, and it goes up to 14 feet. And when they poured the concrete pad, they dug down an extra 8 or 10 inches and made two great big 36-inch squares. And I've got them marked on a diagram exactly where they are, and there's two of them. And they basically dug down deeper into the ground when they poured the concrete pad, so those are like 8 or 10 inches thick. And that'll meet the requirement for the lift post. And we also upgraded the concrete. I can't remember, it's 4,000 PSI maybe 4,500, something like that. There was a standard that the builder would use. The lift company that I checked with, it was BenPack. They said that the standard the builder used was fine. Talked to the builder about it, and he said, you know, for safety, let's upgrade it. It was cheap. I think it was $100 to upgrade to the next level of strength of concrete for the whole shop. So I thought for $100 let's do it. So that's what we did. So it's there, concrete pads are there. Back on the back wall back there, you can see next to the recess there is a plug for the lift if we ever go that route. It's all the provisions are here. So that's a tour of the shop. That shows you kind of all the features and everything that I decided to put in mine. The biggest thing I can recommend is a plan. Have your drawings, take your time if you're planning on building a detached shop like this, or any shop really. And what I recommend is go through 2 or 3 iterations, talk to people who have shops already, ask them what they would do differently. That's what I did. And use your drawings. I probably went through 4 or 5 revisions. I took about a year planning this, and you know, of course during that time we're saving up money and all that to kind of get the shop built. So that's what I've got for you today. Please leave me some comments. Let me know how you'd like to see this series go. I do this for you guys, sharing this information so that you can learn from my mistakes and things that I could have done differently. I will say that I called enough people and did enough research that, having had the shop for about 3 years now, I haven't found anything I would drastically do different, maybe a couple of small things. So this is an opportunity for you to see how I did it and then make your own decisions and see things. Hey, I didn't like the way he did that, I'm gonna do it a little bit different. So leave me some comments below. Let me know what type of content you would like to see as part of this series, and I'll be sure to include it. I'm gonna start off reading out the comments on the next one. So when we do the next segment, I'll go through and read some of the questions. I'll answer those questions as part of the content. So I look forward to doing that. Hope you liked the video. Be sure to give it a thumbs up if you did. Subscribe if you haven't already and you don't want to miss this series as I start going through it. Be sure to check us out on Instagram. It's at Speedy's_garage, as well as our website, www.speedysgarage.net, and I'll be seeing you out there.